You're an interdisciplinary artist born in Israel who lives in Europe between Amsterdam and Berlin, two cities. And just to give everyone the full context of how this piece was created especially for the film festival and how it came about, there's an incredible article that Joanne Palmer wrote on Sagí, which is the cover story of this week's Jewish Standard. But I was returning to Europe, reclaiming my Polish passport as a son of Holocaust survivors. And I was connected to Sagí through a college friend who was a ballet dancer who said, "You must meet my friend, you must meet my friend, you have a lot in common." And after I reclaimed my European passport, I did this trip back to my grandmother's shtetl, her hometown of Opatów, Poland. And the trip started in Berlin. And I went back with my closest friend, who happens to be Muslim. His name's Usama. He's from Tunisia. And he wanted to do this trip with me and was part of the kind of driving force in really pushing me to reclaim my identity, something that was taken from me. And why shouldn't you also have a European passport, because that's something that the Nazis took from you. And I went through this 2-year process in uncovering a lot of information, having to recover birth certificates from my grandparents because everything was taken away or just lost during the war, and then having to go through archives to find this stuff and then present it to the Polish government for citizenship. And on that journey, the first stop was Berlin, and I flew to Berlin, and I met Sagí, who was kind enough to take me to the Jewish Museum and show me around Berlin for my first time with my friend Usama. And we started talking about this idea of home. And for me, I traveled with my grandparents' wedding portrait that was taken after the war, before they immigrated to the US. And I was bringing it back to Opatów because I was meeting Polish Christian community activists that were working in this town. And they were working to preserve the Jewish community and what remnants there were, and also working to kind of revitalize and have a renaissance. And I felt that in a way I was not only returning home for myself, but bringing them home. And we sparked this conversation in the hotel room, and Sagí started showing me his dance pieces, and I talked about growing up as a native New Yorker, having this duality with 2 grandparents that were Holocaust survivors. My other grandparents were American Jews of Russian descent who escaped the pogroms, but they were as New York as a subway ride at rush hour. But I always had this kind of pride in who I was, proud to be Jewish. Growing up in New York, I thought everyone was Jewish. I thought everyone had grandparents that were Holocaust survivors. So it wasn't something that I really started realizing my identity until I went away to college, and I went to university at McGill in Montreal, and I realized, wow, Jews aren't necessarily a majority, although in my mind, where I grew up, I thought we were. And Sagí said, total opposite story for him, as someone who was living in Europe post-October 7th, who really felt like, I now have to cover up my identity because I'm Israeli and because I work in these artistic circles in Amsterdam and even in Berlin. I can't talk about being Israeli for fear that I'm not going to get work or I'm going to have problems with that. And then he also talked about being half Yemeni and half Romanian, and the duality within that. So we came to this understanding that we have to create a piece, and he generously put together this piece tonight that was created for you called Home, with these series of dance shorts to talk about this. So Sagí, I will let you take it from there as the artist, as someone who created this, and talk about all of this.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming into this intimate setup. Well, I mean, where to start? It's so much. I, in a way, most of my life don't live in a Jewish environment, exactly the opposite than you. I am not in a feeling that I am. There's certain challenges, but actually I'm getting empowered by that. I think that it's actually something I really. I never thought about being. I never thought about everything that you said, which means it's just me. It's like my parents are divorced since I was 1 year old. I don't know how it is. I mean, I love both my parents deeply, but I grew up in 2 houses, and that's how it is. So most of my life I grew up in Europe. I mean, as an adult and as a child and a teenager in Tel Aviv. But I was always surrounded within the artistic and gay environment, and philosophy and classical music mostly is like the thing which is actually my religion. Classical music for me is my home. Classical music for me is something which is, because it's the most metaphysical mindset, which is not really connected to any stereotype which we just mentioned. And that fascinates me, and that gives me a lot of parallel universe, which is where I am when I'm no, I want to say creating, but it's not creating, it's living. Therefore, yes, October 7th happened. Yeah, it was extremely insane. I mean, you could see partly, but I'm actually very empowered. I'm very happy to be in New York. It's something new. I mean, it's not really new, but it's new now, this round, because suddenly I do feel that I see actually Jewish people in the street, which is really interesting because you can't see it in Europe. Like, it's not gonna happen. That's sad, but on the other hand, also it's sort of like I'm getting kind of like, within all my experience in representation in my life, representing, being feminist, being in the past, thinking about, I had on my stage queer stories because I'm also queer, I'm a person of color, and all these kind of. Samuel L. Jackson was having a conversation with a rabbi, and he said, when people stop talking about racism, there will be no fucking racism. And this is something that I was kind of like, yeah. So, making art, connecting, thinking of breaking these boundaries because we are all one, and there's something which is very strong. I think at least the deepest level of what I believe in and what I do is that something is even stronger than politics or things that we see that are so polarized. And that's, I can only talk about my own practice, my own artistic practice, which is really breaking these boundaries. It's about human connection. I never really cared if it's since I'm a child, if it's a woman or a man or something in between. I mean, I was not growing up like that. All of that was in a way, was put on the societies where I was, which is by chance are always liberal, very liberal environments. So I'm kind of like, all these issues are not new to me. Just when October 7th came, as a European individual, as a European philosopher, as a European artist, and everything that I'm doing, it started to confuse me a bit because I didn't expect that to happen in such a way. I mean, most of my life I lived in Amsterdam, I speak the language, I have a Dutch nationality, I'm also German-oriented. So I'm very, very kind of mixed. Grandparents came from Yemen and Romania. I grew up and born in Tel Aviv, and most of my life I lived in Europe, having a Dutch nationality and German-oriented. So it's a very mix of everything. I don't really fit one thing. The only thing which I fit is my religion, which is physical script. Physical script is my artistic philosophy. I'm taking the body, I'm training it, and I'm engaging it as an instrument for communication. That's why it's a script and not about movement or something which is more linear or something which is more connecting to one surface. I want to have it communicating with the body is something which is so universal. Maybe even more than you, maybe bigger than that even, because everybody have a body.
I think that's, it's also very interesting in terms of, you talk about the script and your dance, and your style is obviously different, right? People, I think, and even for me, when I saw your work for the first time, it requires people to think a little harder about what is this artist trying to say? What is he actually trying to communicate? Not only through the music, but in his body, in the sound, in the images. And I find it fascinating that your first piece, Too Human, you integrate, these stories of refugees, right? In a certain way. We see a Syrian man, and then we see the blonde-haired man who talks about, oh, we were from Poland, we were from Russia, and then we arrive in Tel Aviv, and we're confronted with images in the airport of, 10/7 hostages, photos all over.
Yeah.
And I guess this notion of displacement, regardless of where we're all coming from. We see this now all over the world, in Palestine, in Ukraine, and everybody kind of yearning though for this same notion of a simplicity of home, of just wanting to be safe, wanting to be in a place where they have a roof over their head and food on the table, where they can live in dignity and they can live without fear of somebody coming to take that away from them. So speak about that and speak to that in terms of how that informs your work and how in a world, I think, where we're trying to reconcile so many things, and you as an artist, and I'm asking you a whole lot of questions,
Sure.
Identity, Jew, queer, Israeli, all of
Jew.
it, Arab,
I don't
right?
think stereotype, it's quite an issue.
So how do you navigate all these dualities in your life and the complexity, of what you do?
Love, just meeting people and talk to them and have food. So actually what happened, I think I will explain it in the nicest way, because I'm very optimistic. And I want to share, I think through telling about each film, I could answer this question. Silent Force, the second film, was premiered, this is the oldest work. This was premiered in Museum de Louvre, in Louvre Museum in Paris, a little place. It was very exciting because the programmer of the Louvre saw a presentation of this film, which actually I made it because I made a performance, and then suddenly I ended up making this film, and she saw it and she called me and she said, yeah, I really like this film, do you want to do the premiere of this film in the Museum de Louvre? So that happened. And then we went there, and they have like this huge auditorium with 600 seats, beautiful cinema. We had like incredible time, and then we also spoke about actually doing the film, and then there was also a live performance, not like what I did at the same time, it was separated, and then there was an interview and everything happened. But what is really interesting about Silent Force as well is Shirley, the first character, who is Indonesian Dutch woman. She's one of the most celebrated Dutch ballerinas ever. She is for those of you that knows a little bit more dance, she's from the Harry Killian Foundation. She's quite appreciated in the Netherlands. As an artist, even though it even touches the subject that we spoke about, because she's Indonesian, a Dutch colony, but she is a very powerful woman, even though she's not tall. She's small but fire, and what was attracting us to each other was the intensity. We are both intensive people and artists. We're like sharp, both Aries, so you can imagine. And then she was pregnant, and she stopped like dancing after like 20, she was like, she's legendary. It's like as if you're going to work with Steven Spielberg. This is the level. And then we started talking about working together, and then she got pregnant, so we had to wait. And then was the whole issue of women and having a child, and then she had a child. And then the child was with us in the studio, yada, yada, yada. It was really affecting this maturing dancer, ballerina body into her story, and how I'm going to embrace it in the piece, which turned into a film. And there were also two other characters that came on the second part, and there's Laurie and Christian, who is an African-Slovenian guy, and Laurie is Dutch. So it was really a beautiful, we say, palette of colors that I could engage from this amazing, phenomenal woman that I was growing up on, looking on people like her. And then, yeah. So that happened. So that's why it's called Silent Force. Silent Force in Netherlands, stille kracht in Dutch, means certain under-level spiritual communication in Indonesia, that they were talking against the Dutch white man. Ha! So that's something which is, everything is coming back to everything. But it was not intentionally. I called it Silent Force because for me it was more about I was having a feminine, it was all about her being mature dance artist, which is quite unusual, especially after you have a baby. So that happened. The second film that I will mention is Too Human, which is a fresh, that's the newest one. They're both filmed with these bricks behind, but they're completely not connected to each other except for visually. And these characters I met in Cologne, which is a city on the border between Netherlands, Holland, and Germany, in the German part. There I met the twins, the Syrian twins. It's actually two men. They're identical twins. One of them is gay, the other one is straight. They are the closest people to each other in the world because they ran away from the Syrian war. And the straight brother doesn't know. They don't really talk about it. It's kind of really situation. So he was really open up to me. He would talk to me alone, and he was telling me so many stories. And the stories, what he's talking about, actually, that he fell in love with his French teacher.
This is the gay brother.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He was falling in love he was 14, and he fell in love with his French teacher, which was, I was really like, looking, you were 14? He went, yeah, and we were like, he was really there for me. And I was like, yeah, but you were 14, what do you mean? No, we didn't go so far, but we were just connected. And I was like, I have to write about it. He's like, yeah, okay, but if you make it, and then I brought something, and it was too literal, and then I said, okay, let me work on it again, and it was more abstract. And he said, okay, it's fine, I'm going to do it. So we worked on that. And the other one is not talking, he's only looking on everything which is happening. And then the other character is a beautiful, beautiful, also young man, straight. Not that it matters, it's just a joke. Some straight people are still existing. Sorry. I have to make it weird, otherwise it gets so heavy. Nah, yeah, Jewish people are always making jokes.
Some of your best friends are straight.
Yeah, straight people. We need to have more straight representation. So the other guy, who is a beautiful artist as well, he told me his whole background from the 18th century. He's Jewish. His family were running from Poland to Russia, wrong direction, but they did. They're like running away from anti-Semitism for like 200-300 years, which is not surprising, but still to hear it from generational mindset of an artist in the west of Germany, it's quite intense. And then we spoke about it, and I wrote also a script about his life. And it was really overwhelming because his mother decided to leave Russia and run away from Russia because of the war in Russia and Ukraine and everything else that is happening there. Where? To Israel during the war on the anniversary of October 7th. 2024. She landed, she did Aliyah. For those of you that doesn't know what is Aliyah, Aliyah is when you go to Israel and you run away sometimes, like she did. And he's like, yeah, she lives there since October 24, which is 1 year. And I was like, okay. And then he went to visit her in February 25 for the first time. There was still the issue with the hostages, and he told me the whole experience because it was his first time. And for those of you that have been in Israel after the war started, like in the airport, you just see posters and posters, and you see so many. I haven't been there during the war until August, and the hostages still didn't come back. And then you get a coffee, and you just see. I mean, I had knives in my body, like it was.
And that was your first time going back post October 7th?
Yeah, I haven't been there for a few years. Yeah, so actually, what he experienced first time in Israel was also in a way my coming back, which was really shocking. And it took me like literally, I was there for 2 weeks. The first week I was just like this, and everybody's just like, they're used to. I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't know how to explain the feeling. It's very weird. I mean, I literally couldn't get coffee because in every coffee place there's a whole wall with names of people that died, including Muslim Israeli. Like seriously, it's so insane. I mean, why am I supposed to say that? But I guess if I said it, it's like almost Freud is here. So they ran from Syria, his mother ran there, he went there, he ran away, everybody's running everywhere, and we just meet and make love and art through physical script, telling stories through a physical mindset. In this case, I also wanted to have text, so I wrote text and I directed them. It was actually a very, very fast process. We filmed it all in like 5 hours because it was just happening. And then I was working for like 2 weeks on making this 10 minutes. Like, it was really intense. So that was very, very intense. The last one it's part of a huge piece called Your Silence is Loud. Your Silence is Loud is a creation that I made. The sentence I wrote a week after October 7th, because I was really like, yeah, that was a tough period. And then I wrote the concept for this piece, and I made quite a big dance theater production of 70 minutes with a group of people, group of performers. But this specific scene, was made for the anniversary of October 7th in Berlin. They decided to do a fundraising for the survivors of the Nova massacre, and I made this scene before I made the big production. So actually I really made this specific scene, and I danced it myself with another mother, Dee, who is a really close friend of mine, a wonderful artist, incredible, and it was an outdoor thing because it was October, it was still warm enough, and they did a fundraising specifically for the Nova, where people went to dance. And there were like maybe 400 or 500 people all around us, and I'm on the stage since I was 3 years old. She's like 41, a mother of 2, living in Rotterdam. Her children are Israeli Dutch, like me, but they were raised into this environment. And we found ourselves just almost vomiting it was the 1 year. I mean, I don't know, I felt like that, because I could see the sky, and I was just with her in the most intimate space, and we had so many eyes around us, and I could see each person in public because it was outdoor, it was still light, because it was still summer feeling, it was beginning of October. So yeah, that was very demanding, and that duet was basically affecting all my creations last season, which was the season of 24-25, from summer to summer, last theater season. And it was so impactful because my body as an instrument takes over me. I mean, when I'm doing something, I'm following my body. My body tells me what to do. And this is the most intensive performance I had in my life, after having thousands of performances in huge places, in intimate places like here, and something in the being connected to the human exhaustion, or I don't know what it was, and looking for hope between me. It's also because she's a mother, Adi's a mother. Something about this motherhood was really, I'm a feminist too. I mean, I don't know if it's the right word to say, but yeah, motherhood is, I don't know, when it goes to children, anything that has to do with children is a bit harder. And when I know that they suffer also, I mean, if something happens to me, it's different, but if it's happening to the children of my friend, I don't have kids, so.
And what you're carrying, as an artist, in terms of presenting that, in Berlin, right?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
You carry that weight.
Yeah, I also have a background which is Holocaust.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, because one of the points, and then I want to open it up to the audience because I'm sure people have questions. One of the things that I found interesting was you talked to me about, you knew nothing about your mother. Your mother came from the Shoah, and that wasn't something
My
that
grandparents. Yeah.
your grandparents, right? And your mother was a daughter,
right,
of survivors, and that it just wasn't spoken about in your home. And
her family, they were not in camps. They managed to run. They went to Israel in '42, but the family, from both sides, half were.
But as far as the story,
the generational trauma,
right,
absolutely,
in your zeitgeist, which I think was very different for me because it was so kind of in my face growing up, and I think the difference for you in kind of that part, not
your
really
silence is loud,
right?
Really, it was not. They would from both sides, also the Romanian side, which apparently, thanks to the interview, I discovered things about my Yemeni side, because I called my aunt to ask for some confirmations about facts that I told the journalist, and then she wrote me things, and apparently there was also some kind of a ghetto also in Sana'a in Yemen, and I was like, what? So yeah, I think that art and spirituality and love is something which was existing in any dark environment until today. It's something which is a certain, like, this is the charger of the iPhone, like this is happening. And that's something which is really, on one hand, there's something very holistic about it, and on the other hand, there's something very practical about that. When you decide to engage your body, your research, your life, whatever that you do in an exposed, loving environment without any cliches, and you're gonna practice it physically, emotionally, mentally, constantly, all the time, yeah, now it's tough. I can't really say, I cannot ignore what's happening everywhere. But on the other hand, I do feel that all the creations that I'm presenting, and last season I had so much, I'm working more than ever also. I just want to make it clear. Like the fact that you say, indeed, there is a lot of issues of anti-Semitism which is really going within the cultural sector. In Europe it's insane, like seriously, it's really intense. But me myself, I'm working all the time because something in the energy, you engage a certain focus and it's like a magnet. Things are starting, like how we met even, things are starting to get magnetized, like how it should be. And then I'm like, okay, so I'm just continuing I'm not going to stop because I can't. It's something which is, I didn't choose to do what I'm doing.
Yeah,
it's obsession. If you're like an artist that is really living what you do, it's not a choice. It's obsession. It's something which is, it's my religion. It's like something which is like, yeah, and if the world has issues and I'm part of the world, okay, I will try to take the world where I can go in order to connect and to create these questions and minds to connect somehow.
And I think, art and film and dance and music are the most powerful mediums to connect us and show us what we have so much more hope is in common than what divides us. I'd like to open it up to the audience for some questions for Sagí. So if anyone would like to ask a question, just raise your hand.
I want to, meanwhile, if
some in the back. Yes.
So please forgive me, I'm an Amharics. For people who don't speak Yiddish, it means ignoramus.
Oh.
I read the piece in the Standard, and I saw you at the opening of Miss Scott, Disappearing Miss Scott. And I don't understand the language. I really love watching you dance. It's really beautiful. I'm wondering if your shirt over your head, it reminded me of Robert Mapplethorpe. How do you say his name?
Mapplethorpe. Robert Mapplethorpe.
Yes.
The photographer.
Yes. Is there a reference to that? And if so,
was there a reference for you when you watched that?
yes.
I love that. That's the answer.
No, but then, I mean, you're trying to communicate something, but maybe I'm not getting what you're trying to communicate.
I think that you're really getting what I'm trying to communicate, because what you see is your precious moment with me. It has nothing to do with me. It's about you. So the reflection, you say in German spiegeling, it's the mirroring, the situation of the mirroring. I can tell you why it's happening, but sometimes it's a visual aspect, sometimes it's an emotional color, and something that happens with the music. It really depends. This piece was actually something that specific piece is really much connected to October 7th, so one can see that. But I don't want to even say that, because what you saw and how it relates to another art piece that you saw, I think it's very important to keep it on the intimate landscape that you have. Because each one of the people here saw something else. And that's the diversity, that's the engagement of how I would like the work to be perceived. So there is an answer for it that I kind of a little bit answer, but I don't want to give too much because I enjoy hearing your perspective. For example, when I performed in Korea some years ago, there was a completely different piece, and a Japanese director came to me in Seoul, in Korea. First of all, she hugged me. Japanese usually don't hug so fast. And then she said, yeah, I saw something from the Second Testament, and it was this and this story, Second Testament, and I'm looking at it, I'm listening to the story, but I don't know it. It was that, right? And then I told her, like, hi, I really appreciate that, but I'm supposed to know the First Testament, I hardly know that. But now I learned the story. So she saw something completely different. It was really beautiful. So, thank you. Yeah, I think it's on the eye of the beholder. How do you say that in English?
Yeah, exactly.
Or the heart of the beholder.
And that's the one thing I always find about dance. I think it's something you kind of have to let it wash over you, and the interpretation, it's always what it makes you feel. I think the artist may have a point in mind, but I always find at the end of the day, it's you want people to take away what it percolates
Absolutely.
inside them.
And it's really great because what I do, I call it physical script. Again, it has a certain meaning, but the fact that it's a script, except when there's words, when there's no words, I mean, when it's a physical script, it's communicating in a way. The idea is that if we are in a parallel universe, if we're on the moon, the people on the moon could also see what they see. Because it's communicating something between abstract to a narrative. But it's not one. It's not singular. So I really need to go now to David Maplethorpe? Robert. Oops, I know him, sorry. Entschuldigung, I'm sorry. And look at that, because now you made me very curious. So I take it as a compliment as well to get connect to a master. I mean, this is lovely. Yes.
So, I know what you just said about the music being art. So, I didn't understand what the opera singer was singing, and I was wondering what the words meant and what the connection was to your piece.
Yes. Well, I'm obsessed with Vivaldi, first of all. When classical pieces are choosing me, and then I imagine that the composer wrote it specially for me. I don't know what other people did with it, it's from an opera or whatever. And then this Cecilia, or we should say Cecilia, because it's Italiano, Cecilia Bartoli, which is the very appreciated, lovely human being that singing this specific recording. It's a love story about someone a man that left her, and yada yada yada, very dramatic, very intense, that is happening there. We took it to somewhere that we wanted to get a little bit more abstraction, because this duet was coming on film first, was coming into a very, very private landscape. I felt that it's as if there's when I'm here in the space, and when there's two people on the screen, there's always someone missing. For me, there's like 4 people, but you see only 3. You see 2 on the screen, and you see 1 human being, which is me here. And something within that, there's always someone, she's indeed talking about someone that she's missing. But even that, it's something between the abstract to the narrative. It's not one linear situation. She is saying specific words, and this amazing, this is a prima ballerina of Stuttgart Ballet, Valeria, she's Italiano. And of course, she was learning the music also with the text, because my Italian is not, I speak a little bit, but not like Italian person. So we did discuss about it as well, because it has to do with love. But because I was in the last year and a half or 2 years in such an emotional landscape of intensity with myself, I think something that left me became, I think these 2 people are in my soul.
Beautiful.
So that was my favorite part, was when you were over here jumping, and it felt like, for me, it was like, oh yeah, that's me in my apartment trying to do so much, or freaking out about the news or whatever it is, but I'm alone. And there's like, here's this 2, beautiful people dancing alone, in their sort of masculine, feminine dance, and I'm like, it was perfect loneliness and, very sad.
Yeah, that's why this production is called Your Silence is Loud, and this scene is called, the scene that we touched is called Your Silence is Loud Cecilia, because we take Cecilia and her silence is also very loud. And the silence is very often is louder than, when someone is doing, even on a private landscape, someone is doing something, and the less. Yeah, I want to mention something about cinema, actually. We spoke about physical script, but within physical script, there's also a term that I made called physical camera. Because I'm a specialist with movement and with my body, when I'm taking the camera, I'm engaging this equipment, this material as another person. So actually for me, it's almost like documentary, but then on a certain, it's like, no, it's just another person. And then this physical camera is also moving all the time around, and it's moving the earth around, it's moving the situation. And it's something that you cannot create in a performance. Because performance, the stage, with the camera you can really get in the most fragile moments. And there's a certain research and practice that I'm taking the music is God, the music is the universe, and I'm starting to paint it through the body. To the body I call cello, this is my cello, so I'm taking the cello with me everywhere. And then the camera is another human being, physical camera, it's engaging and moving around and creating a landscape of the universe. Very judgmental. Sometimes it goes with some films that I made, it's a little bit more sexual, even like grotesque. It goes to, what do you say grotesque in?
Grotesque.
Yeah, so you can show the intensity of the human or like how it goes like different volumes that you can do with the camera, which is fascinating. And within physical camera also I want to add that I took a lot from the commercial world, from TikTok, from I remember once I was in Madrid like 2 years ago and a friend of mine told me, what, you didn't see Rihanna on the Super Bowl? And then we were sitting on a huge screen TV and we were watching Rihanna on the Super Bowl and I was really amazed by how it's been filmed. Of course it cost like billions, but the movement that they have in commercial work, there's a lot of movement of camera which is not necessarily using in film work. And because I'm a movement specialist, I'm a movement director, I have not apparently, I've been doing for a while, but I'm developing constantly skills about the physicality of the camera as another human being. So if there's one and there's a camera, there's actually two. And if there's three, there's actually, if there's two, there's actually three.
Interesting. So that's going to bring our evening to an end. I'd like to thank you, Sagí, so much for sharing your talents with us and bringing your shorts and your dance to the Teaneck International Film Festival, and just let the audience know how they can follow you, your career.
Yeah. Of
Please.
course, Instagram, etc. You can find me there. We also had an interview that I saw that you just posted. So we can find me on Instagram.
What's your Instagram?
Oh, sorry, So I'm starting a new journey. Thank you, Jade. I'm starting a new journey in New York. I'm preparing our residency until 2027, until the end of 2027. I'm going to have a residency at the Y. 92nd and Y.
2nd Street Y.
In Lexington Avenue. And also with the JCC. So there's a lot of in Amsterdam Avenue, but the 92nd and Y was really taking me as an artist in residence. We are planning film evenings, we are planning a big live performance of the whole production of Your Silence is Loud with a group of people. And there's a lot that is happening, we have a lot of plans. And please follow and connect. Instagram is my name, my full name, my 3 names together. And I want to thank Jeremy for this amazing 20th anniversary and all the phenomenal work that you're doing for our world. Because I have seen amazing representation of individual stories, of people, of just human beings, which is so touching and so different than what I've seen in other art institutes. It's very, very refreshing, especially to have it here in Teaneck. I've been all over the world, and what I've experienced in this little city next to New York, and I'm talking to everyone in Manhattan, and Jade as well, and everybody talking about the festival, talking about you, and pumping it out, because I think it's so important, the work that you guys are doing, and I'm very, very proud to be part of the 20th edition. So thank you very much.